I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Tallulah. While searching for her ex-boyfriend, a young drifter impulsively kidnaps a baby from a neglectful mother and pretends the child is her own. Came out in 2016. It's about an hour and 51 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So we got this guy named Nico just chilling in front of the bar, waiting on this girl Tallulah to come out who cheated some people at some gambling. She ain't had no money and she stole a bottle of Henny out of there. So apparently this couple lives out of their van. Next thing you know, they get down to business and he ends up giving her the business. So they start talking. The bottom line, she wants to be a little drifter dandy for the rest of her life. But Nico's at the point where he's tired of this lifestyle and he's actually going to go visit his mom. Now keep in mind, he hasn't visited his mom in like 2 years. Then she talks some shit about wanting to go to India. Then she spazzes out on him and is like, you don't like my lifestyle, then get the fuck out then. He's like, really, man? I'm tired of eating shit out of dumpsters and asking people for money. So that conversation was kind of rocky. Then she has this dream of being locked out the van. She starts floating off the ground like it's no gravity. And she's just floating away to space. But then she wakes up the next day and finds out that Nico's gone. She even had time to knit a whole damn quilt. Yeah, Nico's not coming back. And I guess she really figured it out when she took the stash in the glove box. He did leave some gas cards in there, so with nowhere else to go, she's on the road. And where did she decide to go? To New York. To go visit Nico's mom, asking for money. She's like, you don't get on my face of that shit, and then slam the door on her. Then Margot goes back to feeding the turtle. That's right, Margot, we fuck with the Ninja Turtles around here in these streets. As she's checking her messages, she hears from her ex-husband telling her like to design the divorce papers, like just sign them. For some reason, she just doesn't want to. Next day, she goes down to the doorman and gets her mail. She tells him if the girl Tallulah comes back, just send her up. Now, Tallulah ended up coming back as she's snacking on other people's food and shit. She tries to get this person food, but then the door opens. It ends up being this lady named Cindy. This is gonna be some shit. Now I don't know if she's furred or not, but she thinks Tallulah is one of the maids or servants or whatever. Then she asks her to watch her baby, she'll pay her for it and all this shit. Now her demeanor is she doesn't like marriage, she doesn't like dealing with kids or anything like that, and she doesn't really want to go along with it, but after a while she goes along with it. Then she starts kissing the butler that brought her drinks. She's got a bunch of drinks, the baby's walking around naked, so clearly she's in need of attention. She talks about how her husband doesn't see her desirable anymore and she's out here by herself. Well, with the baby anyway. Then she gives her $100 to help her do her makeup, and she really doesn't even do a whole lot, so she really don't give a fuck about the money. Then the baby peed on the floor, and I'm like, she's walking around naked, what the fuck? So clearly at this point, you're thinking she don't know what to do with a damn baby, right? After Cindy leaves out, Tallulah still takes like some money and jewels and shit like that and stuffs it in her pocket. So because the lady doesn't care and that's her husband's money, you think that'd be enough for her, right? She cleans her up, feeds him, takes a bath, and they pretty much chilling. Mom comes home dumb-furred, the butler's bringing her in and shit. She was supposed to have a date with somebody, but the dude stood her up, so she's like, the fuck? And after that, she just passed out on the bed. Now, at this point, Tallulah was about to leave. Her job is done. She's about to put the baby down. But when she leaves, the baby starts crying for her and all that. So because of her quote-unquote conscience, guess what her goofy ass decides to do? I said it at the beginning of the video, but yeah. She takes the fucking baby with her. It wasn't enough that she gave you money, you stole some money, and you stole some valuables, but then you had to take her fucking baby, really? Does she seem like an unfit mother? Maybe, but bottom line is, how much better are you gonna do? You were stealing money just to go, and you living out your fucking van, like really? The only reason she was out there is trying to get money from Margot, who's happened to be reading over some divorce papers while she's in the bathtub. She let them joints float in the water like, fuck that. But then thought twice about it and started drying them off, like, Next morning, Cindy wakes up realizing her baby's gone and basically looking around like, what the fuck? Meanwhile, her goofy ass is about to go right back to the same damn spot. Obviously, you can't do that. The boy's looking for you. Yeah, get your dumb ass out the building. Meanwhile, Margot's heading to a meeting. Look at that face, though. And she runs into two people she hadn't seen in a while, and they're about to come to her book signing. Yeah, she's like a famous author. She wrote so many books. Meanwhile, Tallulah goes to the pharmacy looking for diapers and food and stuff like that. And while this other lady's not looking, she ends up snatching her stroller. Hey, why not? You snatched a fucking baby. After she comes home from a book club meeting, she chose to feed her turtle, but then finds out that her turtle died. Oh, no. At that moment, Tallulah pops up at the door, tells her that this is her kid, and it's Nico's daughter, too. Basically lied to her to get some sympathy so she has somewhere to stay. So what have we learned, everybody? She's a liar, she's a thief, she's a drifter, and she likes to steal babies. She has no good qualities about her whatsoever. No wonder Nico left this bitch, like really. Well anyway, Margot tells her she can stay for one day, because Margot's very picky with the stuff in her house, but Tallulah knows that she's going to keep her longer than that. If for nothing else, off the strength of the baby. Meanwhile, the police on the scene questioning Cindy about their relationship and all that, and they try to do whatever they can to find the baby. The funny thing about this shit, the building that Cindy's in is right across the street from the building that Margot's in. I guess you could call it that hiding in plain sight shit. Well anyway, Margot and Tallulah start forming a bond as they're about to go to sleep. And you can tell right at the back she's gonna keep her there longer than a day. Next morning, Margot wakes up to a bunch of noise, and she hears Tallulah messing with a juicer with a bunch of lemons trying to make a about to have a lemonade stand, I guess. I don't know. Then she starts selling lemonade on the street. Look at that little ass picture. Look like piss. But ironically, she actually made some money doing it. Margot's like, you can't keep doing this on the street. What are the neighbors gonna think? Like Tallulah really gives a fuck about that. Meanwhile, police are still searching, and they get the elevator footage. They see you. As they're having dinner, Margot starts talking about her husband and how he paid for all this, which might be a big reason why she hasn't signed the divorce papers yet. Then we find out that her husband left her for another dude, so he's basically gay now. So if you're looking at her demeanor and see why she's so irritated, now you know why. As Tallulah put the baby to sleep, she had second thoughts about everything. She was at the point where she was going to leave the baby with Margot, get in the truck and then pull off. But when she got in the van, she couldn't do it. Instead, she just fell asleep in the van. Letting other people take responsibility for something that's not even your responsibility because you out here stealing kids. Then they take her to the park like everything's all good and gravy. Then they have this conversation about living and dying and gravity and shit. As Cindy's going through a bunch of her old child's clothes, she has to talk with Child Protective Services. Oh snap, that's my girl from Orange is the New Black. Oh shit. And she's looking at her collection of clothes and also looking at her collection of drinks too. Basically trying to figure out what kind of mother she is, you know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, Margot's always had this interaction with the doorman. He helps her carry up some stuff. When she gets in the house, she sees all her paintings on the ground. They about to repaint over this shit. She's like, are you fucking serious? I mean, yeah, I hate the paintings, but still, like, put them shits back up. She was about to kick Tallulah out, but then she got so irritated that she spilled painting on one of the paintings, so she's like, fuck it. Then she actually started painting with Tallulah. So the thing is, she's supposed to be some straight-laced individual, but then she tells her this story about how she met this dude in a rock band, and how one time she had to stick heroin in her ass to try to get it across to the airport, but eventually she failed at it. It was like... And then, oh shit, the kidnapping story hits the TV. Luckily, the TV was down and Margot was not paying attention to it. Meanwhile, Cindy's more mad that the story got out on the news. She's like, what the fuck? She's not mad at them trying to do their job. She's mad because she's got beef with her husband. See, the husband already sees her as an unfit mother, and this situation is going to prove him right. And then while Tallulah's sitting on the bench, we get a flashback to when her and Nico first met. Because the transition was weird. It was like she was playing with the baby. Yeah, like that, right? And then when Nico popped up on the screen, the baby disappeared. Once they started talking, you could tell it was a flashback, but it was so weird once the transition hit. It was like, alright. Well, anyway, Margot finally puts her Mac on against the doorman. She asks him to come upstairs for some wine or something. So she gets him upstairs. She starts telling him about multiple wines. Then he lunges in for the kiss. It's like, alright. And then she acting like she don't want it. And then she tells him to leave. And I'm like, yeah, what did you expect him to think? As soon as he leaves, she feeling dumb too. Like, what the fuck was I thinking? Margot tells Tallulah about it. Tallulah's like, man, you should have smashed on him. Margot's like, yeah, you right, I'm stupid. And they had this weird conversation about life and death again, and they start talking about Nico. Then she has this dream about Nico, talk about their future. He's like, nah, your future's fucked up, you out here stealing babies. She wakes up reading the newspaper about herself, and she tries to toss that shit in the trash before Margot finds it. Then they go to visit Margot's ex-husband and his boyfriend. Meanwhile, Cindy's trying to use her credit cards that she can't use. And I'm like, wow, shouldn't you be thinking about your baby? Then the realization starts setting in. Then he's trying to figure out the situation. He's like, well, my son wouldn't leave a child abandoned, and why would we leave her in the hands of you? Then he's looking at Tallulah like, is that really your son, like, or daughter? Like, what's really going on here? And Margot don't know the situation. She's on the side of Tallulah, but bottom line is he's absolutely right. He calls out on the bullshit and tells her that Tallulah is a liar, which she is, but Margot can't see past that because of what he did to her, you know what I'm saying? Leaving her for another dude and all this other stuff. After they beef, they get a taxi and get the fuck out of there. And at this point, they don't know whether the baby's sick or not. Then while Cindy's riding in the taxi, she sees her baby, like, oh shit. Tallulah and them try to hurry up and dip. If you don't get around this goddamn taxi guy and get your kid, they get on a subway train and they escape Cindy. Margot's trying to put stuff together. She's like, who the fuck is that lady chasing us? Like, what's going on? And Margot's basically trying to help her at this point. She's trying to figure out what's going on. But she ain't gonna tell nothing because she's too damn goofy. She tried to get out of there, but they put a boot on her car. So as Cindy's going back to her apartment, her husband finally shows up. Meanwhile, Margot goes back to her spot, and Nico shows up after 2 years. Meanwhile, the husband's giving Cindy a whole bunch of shit that she deserves. He's like giving her child away to a stranger. Does she even look like she had a uniform on? Like just berating her the whole 9 yards. Then she goes out on the dock with the child. Then Nico pops out like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He says he's been looking everywhere for her. Turns out he let her go get some stuff and he was going to come right back. And she out here stealing and kidnapping babies and shit. Nico, you should have left her goofy ass alone. Well, anyway, when Margot's in the house, the police are at her door. When they asked about the baby, you know she had to look like she's definitely putting two and two together. So they go to the hospital with the baby because they think the baby's sick. And she didn't know she was going to be asked a whole bunch of insurance questions and all this other stuff. I'm like, did you really not think this through? Like, of course she didn't think this through. She stole a fucking baby. Nico says, look, I'll make sure the baby's good. They looking for you. You need to get the fuck out, run, now. And so that's what she does. Now Margot's finally informed about the whole situation. And now she's having one-on-one with Cindy. Cindy obviously knows Margot didn't know anything about it, but she definitely feels like he's going to get a divorce from her, for real. But she felt like she had to survive off him anyway because he had a lot of money. And she wanted to do something right by raising a baby, and this was like a last option. But considering how this went down, it's like, yeah, no. Clearly this goofball didn't want to escape because she's at the subway and she's about to make a phone call. Who's she about to call? Margot, who she should know by now. Police are at the door. They ain't gonna be wiretapping. Even after the phone call, she could have got away on the subway, but then she decides not to. Instead, her dumbass comes back to the hospital, where of course the police catch her and put the handcuffs on her. Then they play the sad music like we were supposed to feel sorry for her. Like, get the fuck out of here. Just stupid. Then Margot's like, I'll do everything in my power to try to get you out. Yeah, sure, kidnapping babies, alright. My man like, alright, whatever, let's get your dumb ass down to the damn station. Last thing we see is Margot at Central Park, lying on the ground, and she starts floating away. Now, there's supposed to be a metaphor here somewhere. Earlier, she had said something about, if there was no gravity, would you grab onto something, or would you just float off into space? And Margot said she would just float off into space. But something made her change her mind, and she wanted to grab a hold of something. I guess the metaphor saying she has something to live for. Now, obviously, she's not really floating, but you get the point of what we're talking about. Well, anyway, that's the end of the movie. We could concur that Tallulah herself was a piece of shit, point blank, period. Nico really didn't have to come back and do a damn thing for her. She wanted to be a drifter. She wanted to steal from people. She wanted to steal babies. Like I said, she has no redeemable qualities whatsoever. And she's going to jail, rightfully so. It was no reason for you to steal a baby. You was able to get the money up, everything else scot-free. Like, the fuck? I thought it was going to be like Juno, but this movie's totally different from Juno. Yeah, she was in that shit too. Tallulah on Netflix. Check it out, like, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. Sleep easy, easy, mister. Big, good goddamn slogan.